You eliminated carbohydrates, counted every calorie with precision, and pushed yourself through long treadmill sessions until your legs felt completely drained. On paper, everything says the weight should be dropping. The numbers show you are in a calorie deficit. But when you check the mirror, that stubborn fat around your stomach has not moved at all. If anything, it may even look puffier, more irritated, and more permanent than before. There is a real biological explanation for this, and it has nothing to do with a lack of effort or discipline. This is not simply about eating less and exercising more. You're up against a built-in survival system that can override your diet without you realizing it. While you are trying to burn fat, your body may be receiving chemical signals that tell it to hold on to it instead. These signals can create a metabolic state where insulin stays elevated even if you completely avoid sugar. They can also push your liver to produce its own glucose, even if you are strictly following a low-carb or keto plan. By the end of this video, you will clearly understand why that belly fat refuses to go away, and more importantly, how to change the signal that forces your body to tap into stored visceral fat for energy. Studies show that this deep abdominal fat is chemically different from the fat stored on your legs or arms. It contains a high number of cortisol receptors. You can think of these receptors as sensitive antennas. While the rest of your body may ignore small stress signals, belly fat detects them, amplifies them, and reacts quickly. It is designed to respond strongly to cortisol. This setup creates a dangerous feedback cycle. When you experience stress, whether it comes from work pressure, poor sleep, or extreme dieting, your cortisol levels rise. That visceral fat, packed with millions of sensitive receptors, absorbs the signal and begins to expand. But it does not stop there. As this deep abdominal fat grows, it releases inflammatory chemicals that stimulate even more cortisol production. It turns into a self-sustaining factory. The fat tissue actively pulls in additional stress hormones to protect its own survival. In other words, it feeds on the very stress that is wearing you down. This explains the so-called skinny fat look, where someone may eat very little, yet still carry a noticeable amount of belly fat. Their body is operating in crisis mode. When cortisol remains elevated for long periods, the body shifts into preservation mode. It assumes you are facing a long-term famine or constantly escaping danger. In that state, burning stored fat is the last priority. Instead, it locks those reserves away. At this point, you might be thinking, but I eat clean, so my insulin must be low. This is where the biology becomes both fascinating and frustrating. You could eat nothing but steak and drink only water, and your blood sugar could still rise. The reason is that your liver functions like a powerful chemical lab. When cortisol increases, it sends a message to the liver demanding immediate energy. In response, the liver manufactures glucose from amino acids and other tissues in a process known as gluconeogenesis, which literally means creating new sugar. So imagine this. You wake up after not eating for 12 hours, but you are under stress. Your cortisol rises, and your liver releases freshly made glucose into your bloodstream to prepare for a threat that does not actually exist. Your pancreas detects this sugar and responds by releasing insulin to control it. Now you have high cortisol and high insulin at the same time, even though you have not eaten anything, because insulin is the main hormone that shuts off fat burning. You are effectively blocked from accessing your stored fat. You're running on sugar your own body produced while your fat stores remain tightly sealed. This hormonal confusion is often driven by 3 lifestyle traps that appear healthy on the surface, but quietly make the situation worse. The first trap is what I call the endurance paradox. For years, we have been told that constant movement is the key to weight loss. So people run for an hour, jog daily, or spend long sessions on the elliptical. They sweat, they push hard, and they believe they are doing everything right. But from a biological standpoint, this signals a long, ongoing emergency. Historically, humans walked long distances to gather food and sprinted briefly to escape danger or capture prey. We did not jog at a steady medium pace for an hour every single day. When you repeatedly perform moderate-intensity cardio for long periods, your body interprets it as extended migration without reliable food. Cortisol rises to keep you moving, and without proper recovery, it never fully drops. When that cortisol stays elevated day after day, the consequences begin to stack up. One major effect is muscle breakdown. Cortisol pulls amino acids from muscle tissue and converts them into fuel. As muscle mass decreases, your resting metabolic rate drops, meaning you burn fewer calories even when you are doing nothing. At the same time, the persistent cortisol signal directs fat storage specifically toward the visceral area. In simple terms, you are breaking down the very tissue that keeps your metabolism strong while storing more fat around your stomach. You may notice the scale moving downward, but your body composition is shifting in the wrong direction. Become lighter, yet softer, and metabolically slower. The engine is shrinking while the fuel tank around your waist expands. Then there is the second trap, what I call competitive fasting. Fasting can be an incredibly powerful tool for cellular repair and longevity when used properly. It acts like an internal cleanup system. Imagine sending a cleanup crew into a building that is already on fire. That is what happens when intense fasting is layered on top of a high-stress lifestyle. If you are sleeping only 5 hours, managing constant pressure at work, and then forcing yourself to go 20 or 24 hours without nutrients, you are not restoring your system. You are overwhelming it. Your body reads the lack of incoming energy as confirmation of famine. The stress of the fast adds to the stress you already carry. When the total stress load exceeds your ability to adapt, the body shifts into deeper preservation mode instead of fat burning. Instead of accelerating fat loss, your thyroid begins to slow down, your overall energy drops, and your hands and feet may start to feel cold. Your body clings even tighter to visceral fat because it views that stored energy as the last line of defense. You are trying to overpower biology, but biology is designed to win. The purpose of fasting is to reduce insulin so the body can access stored fat. However, if the stress of extended fasting raises cortisol high enough to trigger the liver to release glucose, the benefit is canceled out. You are left feeling deprived and stressed at the same time. That brings us to the third and perhaps most overlooked trap, the nocturnal alarm. This is one of the quietest saboteurs of fat loss. You may spend 8 hours in bed, but that does not mean your body is truly recovering. Consider a situation that may sound familiar. You fall asleep exhausted, only to wake suddenly at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning. You are not just awake, you are alert. Your mind immediately begins running through tomorrow's tasks. You turn over, check the clock, and struggle to fall back asleep until shortly before your alarm goes off. This is not simply poor sleep quality. It is often a blood sugar crash during the night. As you sleep, blood glucose naturally declines. If your stress levels are high or your metabolic flexibility is weak, that drop can happen too quickly. When blood sugar falls too fast during the night, your brain reacts immediately. The brain relies heavily on glucose, so it interprets the rapid drop as a threat to survival. In response, it activates the alarm system. Your adrenal glands release adrenaline and cortisol to signal the liver to release stored glucose into the bloodstream. That surge of adrenaline is what jolts you awake. You are essentially triggering a fight or flight response while you are supposed to be resting. This creates two major problems. First, you miss the deep stages of sleep known as delta wave sleep, which is when growth hormone is released. Growth hormone plays a key role in fat burning, muscle repair, and anti-aging. Without enough of it, recovery and fat loss both suffer. Second, you spend much of the night with elevated cortisol and insulin levels. Instead of waking up refreshed and lean, you wake up puffy, holding water and primed to store fat around your midsection. So the question becomes, how do we break out of this cycle? How do we signal to the body that the threat is gone so it can finally release stored energy? The answer is that we must send consistent safety signals. We need to work with the nervous system instead of against it. The first step requires changing how you think about movement. Rather than punishing the body with long, draining workouts, we focus on flushing the system in a strategic way. Instead of relying on long, draining cardio sessions, we shift toward what I call a metabolic flush. This is still walking, but it is done with purpose and timing. The key is to take a brisk 10 to 15-minute walk immediately after eating. When you consume a meal, your blood glucose rises. Normally, your pancreas responds by releasing insulin to move that glucose out of the bloodstream. However, muscle tissue has a unique pathway for absorbing glucose that does not rely entirely on insulin. When muscles contract, they can pull sugar directly from the blood through a mechanical process. By walking right after a meal, you activate this pathway. You lower blood sugar naturally and reduce the need for a large insulin response. Lower insulin means a weaker signal to store fat. At the same time, this practice supports digestion and helps reduce the stress response that can follow eating. Your muscles essentially act as a sponge for excess glucose, keeping your bloodstream stable and protecting your fat-burning systems. Next, we need to solve the overnight blood sugar crash. If you regularly wake up at 3 a.m., the goal is to prevent that drop before it triggers the stress response. This requires a strategic safety anchor before bed. It may go against the common advice of avoiding food at night, but context matters. If nighttime stress is waking you up, staying completely fasted may be making the problem worse. The solution is simple. A small amount of raw honey combined with a pinch of high-quality sea salt just before sleep. We are not talking about a full snack or a large meal, just about a teaspoon of honey paired with a small pinch of sea salt. The goal is precision, not excess. The honey provides a steady supply of liver glycogen, gently topping off your stored energy so your brain does not sense a shortage during the night. When glycogen levels remain stable, the brain is less likely to trigger a stress response. The sea salt supports fluid balance and can help calm adrenaline activity. By preventing the sudden blood sugar crash, you avoid the adrenaline spike that wakes you up. As a result, you stay asleep longer and move into the deeper stages of rest where cortisol naturally drops to its lowest levels and growth hormone reaches its peak. In this way, you exchange a very small amount of calories for several hours of high-quality hormonal repair. It becomes a calculated trade that supports fat burning instead of blocking it. Now we need to address intensity. The goal is not to return to long sessions of jogging, but we still want to stimulate muscle growth and send a powerful signal to the body. This is where brief controlled bursts of high effort come in. Once or twice per week, perform short all-out efforts, such as 15 seconds of sprinting uphill or 20 seconds on a stationary bike at maximum intensity. Then allow full recovery before repeating. This pattern mirrors ancestral movement, short bursts of effort followed by complete rest. This style of training creates a strong hormonal response without the long-term stress of extended cardio. Short, intense bursts can significantly increase human growth hormone, sometimes by several 100%. Growth hormone works in opposition to cortisol. It supports muscle growth and helps reduce visceral fat. By keeping the effort brief and allowing full recovery, you gain the hormonal benefits without creating constant wear and tear on the system. Less duration with higher intensity gives you metabolic advantage without chronic stress. We also need to examine how and when you eat. If you choose to fast, the meals inside your eating window must truly nourish you. You cannot fast for 20 hours and then break it with a light snack. That signals scarcity, not safety. When you open your eating window, protein should be your top priority. Protein is highly satisfying, but it also stimulates the release of glucagon, a hormone that counterbalances insulin. Think about your target body weight. If your goal is 150 pounds, aim for close to 150 grams of protein during your feeding window. This sends a message of abundance. It tells your body that resources are available, that muscle can be maintained or built, and that stored fat can be released. If you are unable to reach adequate protein intake, your fasting window may be too long. In that case, shorten the fast and expand the eating window to meet your nutritional needs. Finally, there is a biochemical lever that is more powerful than any supplement. It directly counters the cortisol-driven feedback loop. You cannot simply decide to eliminate stress, but you can influence the chemistry behind it. The natural counterbalance to cortisol is oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. When oxytocin rises, cortisol is pushed downward. They operate like opposite ends of a scale. You can stimulate oxytocin intentionally through a practice I call vitamin G, which stands for deliberate gratitude. This is not about casually saying thank you. It means taking about 60 seconds to genuinely feel appreciation for something specific. It might be the warmth of the sun on your skin, the taste of your morning coffee, or the presence of someone you care about. When you create that real emotional response, your heart rate variability shifts and your nervous system moves away from fight or flight. Your internal chemistry begins to change. Practicing this before a meal can improve digestion and insulin response. Doing it before bed can help you fall asleep faster. It is a simple reset tool that costs nothing yet has measurable effects. When you step back and view the whole picture, you realize this is not a simple calorie issue. It is a hormonal pattern. Belly fat reflects a body that feels under threat. To change it, you remove chronic cardio that drains you and replace it with strength work or short sprints that build you. You avoid extreme fasting and instead fuel properly with adequate protein to signal safety. You protect your sleep with small strategic adjustments and lower daily stress through walking and gratitude. When the threat signal fades, the body no longer needs its defenses. Visceral fat begins to release. Energy improves. Mental clarity returns. The tightness around your waist finally starts to ease. You now have a clear roadmap. This is not about doing more and pushing harder. It is about choosing the right actions that tell a stressed metabolism that it is safe. If you have been listening and realizing that your broken sleep may be the missing piece, you are not the only one. It's a consistent 3 o'clock a.m. Wake up is not just frustrating, it signals a deeper metabolic problem. But repairing your sleep cycle may require understanding another layer of biology connected to your liver's natural rhythm. There is more happening overnight than most people realize. Your body follows patterns tied to energy regulation, hormone release, and stress response. If that rhythm is disrupted, fat loss becomes much harder. I want to hear from you. If you find yourself stuck in that early morning wake-up cycle, leave a comment below and share your experience. You now have a clear roadmap in front of you. This process is not about adding more effort, more restriction, or more punishment to your routine. It is about selecting the specific actions that communicate safety to a metabolism that has been operating under stress. When the body feels threatened, it defends itself. When it feels safe, it releases what it no longer needs. If you have been listening closely and realizing that your disrupted sleep might be the missing link in this entire equation, you are not alone. That consistent 3 o'clock a.m. wake up is more than an inconvenience. It's not just a minor annoyance or a random habit. It reflects a deeper metabolic imbalance that is interfering with your ability to regulate hormones properly. When your sleep cycle is interrupted night after night, your body never fully enters the restorative state required for optimal fat burning and recovery. There is also another layer involved, one that connects directly to your liver's natural rhythm and how it manages energy while you sleep. Throughout the night, your body follows precise patterns related to glucose control, hormone release, and stress regulation. If that rhythm becomes unstable, your system struggles to maintain balance, and fat loss becomes significantly more difficult. Stabilizing that rhythm is part of signaling that the internal threat has passed. When your nights improve, your days begin to shift as well. I want to hear from you. If you find yourself trapped in that early morning wake-up cycle, share your experience in the comments below.